Hello, Northwoods Online. So glad you could join us this weekend. My name is Nathan, and for those of you that are watching from America, happy 4th of July weekend to you guys. And to the rest of you that are across the globe, we're glad you've joined us this weekend as well. Look, we got a special treat for you today. Legacy 5 is in the house. They're bringing some incredible music, incredible worship. I believe they're really going to bless you, encourage you. Look for them today, okay? Don't miss that. Now, also, I want to give you a heads up that if you take a picture of yourself watching Northwoods Online or the group that you're with watching Northwoods Online, you throw that onto Facebook or Instagram, throw the hashtag Northwoods Online there, and you'll enter yourself to win a gift card giveaway. All right? Just throw the hashtag, a picture up on Facebook or Instagram, and you will have a chance to win a gift card for you, your friends, your family, whoever you want to give that to. Now, enjoy the service, sit back, engage yourself. We're so glad that you've joined us. This is Northwoods Online.
Hi, I'm Kennedy. I've been going to Northwoods for about 13 years now. When I was in about 6th grade, I was at Northwoods Mall, and I remember getting really lightheaded and dizzy and feeling like I couldn't breathe, and the room was spinning, and my parents just laid me down on the couch, and they weren't sure if they should call the hospital or not, and that's basically when my panic attack started. I didn't even for a while think about God ever being able to help me with that. I didn't think about resorting to God. I didn't think about, maybe if I just prayed. I guess I really didn't believe in the power of prayer and just how strong it was. I was basically like, okay, we've tried everything else, why not just try it? And so we did. When I was driving home, the first song that came on the radio was No Longer Slaves. It was, I'm no longer a slave to fear. I just broke down. God was speaking to me. I was no longer a slave to anxiety. I just couldn't not feel happy for some reason, and probably because I was free. I went several months without an anxiety attack, and I didn't even notice it. It must have been the prayer. So every time I think about how long it's been since I've had a panic attack, I thank God, and I thank Him for the change that has happened, and I'm just so thankful for it because my life is so much different now. Whenever I find out that somebody else is dealing with anxiety and panic attacks, I tell them, go get prayer.
Thanks for meeting with me today. It's been a hard week, there's just been a lot that's happening. I just really appreciate you meeting with me. Last Monday, it's my day off, and I told the wife, I said, hey, I'm gonna clean the house, I'm gonna do the dishes, take the garbage out, do laundry. And she left, and I was working, I had like an hour, and I said to myself, you know what? You deserve this. Take an hour, play some video games, and that 1 hour ended up being like 7 hours. There is nothing that puts the fear of God in a man like the garage door opening when your wife comes home and you haven't cleaned the house at all. There's so much yelling. I'm in like a tunnel of darkness all the time. A lot of walking on eggshells, those types of things. I've got to take this. Hey, honey. How's it? No, I'm at the car wash.
What's up, Northwoods? How's everybody today? You feeling good? Let's give it up for our other campuses, Galesburg, Chile, Princeton, Canton, and our online family. Great to have you guys with us. I hope you all had a great worship time on your campus, but guys, come on, give it up for Legacy 5. We just had an awesome Southern Gospel Con. And I hope that's enough for some of you to go out and get your tickets, because they're here at 6 o'clock tonight. Listen, if you don't like that, you come tonight and you don't like it, I'll give you a refund, all right? But I want to see people from all of our other campuses. You come on over as well, and let's pack this place out. And this is going to get our 4th of July started right. I'm so glad to be back with you full-throated today after losing that voice last week. 2 times in 30-some years of preaching that I haven't been able to make the call on Sunday morning. And one of those was last week. So you got a little taste of what it's like to be on one of our campuses, right? And just kind of watch the screen. But you know, we started a new series, and it's how to deal with how you feel. We talked last week about how to deal with how you feel when your prayers aren't going anywhere, right? Like when I get up in the morning, I've been praying, God, give me my voice, and it doesn't work. I got to deal with how I feel. And today we're going to be looking at how to deal with how you feel when it feels like fear is winning. And then I'm going on a hiatus for a little bit. I want you to celebrate these next 4 that are going to be finishing up this series. I'm going to be taking a little vacay for a couple of weeks, and then my regular study break. So you be praying for me, I'll be praying for you. One thing I want to say is get on your schedule August 17 and 18. Now, you don't have to take off work on the 17th because it starts that evening. I'm going to lead off our first conference by sharing with you some exciting vision of where we're headed in the days ahead. And then there's going to be some other folks that have coached us and been a part. All of our overseas partners will be here as well. So if you can take down Friday the 18th, be here. These great guys that have coached us, you're going to enjoy. They are conference speakers. And then we're going to have a great time on Friday. We're going to finish up that evening on the 18th with a great worship conference, or concert. So you get that on your schedule. I hope to see you there, okay? But again, as we go throughout this series, like Nathan's going to have his first time preaching here next week. So you cheer that young man on, all right? He's going to be on how to deal with how you feel when you feel depressed. We're going to talk today about fear. I love the story of this lady who was taking a weekend with her husband to Atlantic City a few years ago, decided to go into some of the betting facilities there, right? She's playing some of the slots, and she won a huge pail full of quarters. And she and her husband were going to be going to dinner, and so she thought, I better run these up to the room, can't take them down there to the dinner with me. And so she heads over to the elevator. As she hits the button, the doors open. There on the elevator are 2 African Americans, one who's very tall, very big, and really intimidating. And she hesitates, knowing full well they can see right through the racial stereotyping that's going on in her brain at that moment. And she kind of feels bad about that, so she just kind of sheepishly gets on the elevator without making eye contact. Doors closed, almost pinch her nose in it. She's standing there. Elevator's not moving. She can feel her heart pounding, pulse racing. She's starting to sweat. And all of a sudden, her fear, the panic just begins to take over. Oh man, I'm trapped and I'm going to be robbed. And all of a sudden, she hears one of the guys say, hit the floor. The pail, the bucket of of quarters fly up. She hits the floor. And she's praying in her mind, please God, let them take the money, but spare my life. At which point, one of the guys walks over and says, ma'am, if you just tell us which floor you want, I'll be happy to hit the button, all right? And he almost couldn't contain himself because he's about ready to bust out laughing, And so then they help her up a little bit, and she, again, just feeling really rotten. These guys are 2 perfectly, just perfect gentlemen. And she's like, how could I thought that they were going to rob me, this type of thing. They're helping her up. And the one guy says, hey, when I told my man here to hit the floor, I meant push the button on the elevator, They got to her floor. The doors open. She looked a little wobbly yet, so they walked her down the corridor to her room. Once inside, she closed the door, and she heard them just roaring with laughter as they walked back to the elevator. She pulled herself together, went down to meet her husband for dinner that night. Didn't say anything to him, but the next morning, there came 12 beautiful roses to her room. And to each rose was attached a crisp $100 bill and a note which said, "Thanks for giving us the best laugh we've had in a long time." Signed, Eddie Murphy and Michael Jordan. Is that awesome? How many of you know that fear can make fools of us all, right? The mind starts to race, gets a hold of us, and we imagine scenarios that just aren't real. I would only encourage you to know that rarely does it pay quite as handsomely as it paid her. Now, I don't know what real or imagined fears you may be facing today, but we need to hear God's voice in the midst of them. Fear not. I've taught you before, that is the most oft-repeated command in the Scriptures. Fear not. You think it might be love one another or whatever. No, it's fear not. 366 times. One for every day of the year and one to cover leap year. Fear not. Because God knows we give way to fear all too easily. And while there is a form of good fear, see, every emotion we're dealing with, in its right context, is a good emotion. There is a good fear which induces me to act in the face of a real threat. So my little grandchild is ready to run into the street and there's a car coming, right? My heart races. Hey, I stop her, pull her back. Why? It's fear that moves me to action. That's legitimate fear. But that's something far different than what we're talking about today, this emotionally crippling fear concerning things over which we have no control. For some of us, it may be just that ill-defined floating anxiety that something bad might happen to us or our family. For some of us, it may be the fear of losing our job or losing our health, possibly facing a surgery down the road, or experiencing an extended illness. Or what about the fear of being alone, of losing our spouse? Or what if something happened to one of my children, maybe an accident or disease? Or what about the terrifying possibilities in our world today? What if we suffer a major terrorist attack? What if global warming takes us down? All these what if. And then for others of us, there may be these weird kinds of phobias. I don't know why, but something just kind of triggers me, and I kind of go into panic. I was kind of looking around for some jokes and this type of thing, humor around fear, and I ran into a phobia workshop. It's kind of like, if you had a small group around here for people with phobias, I thought you might enjoy this, all right? Let's have fun laughing at it today.
Well, I'd like to welcome you all to the Phobia Workshop. My name's Lee, and I actually have a phobia myself. I have a fear of the word which is spelt A-A-G-H exclamation mark. That word. Why don't you tell me a bit about yourselves, starting with you.
Hi everyone, my name's Jim, and I have a fear of apologies.
Sorry?
Ah!
Oh, apologies.
Yeah.
Sorry. Is it any sort of apologies?
Yes.
Right. Well, we'll just try and avoid them, shall we? What's your problem?
My name's Karen, and I have a fear of repetition.
Oh, you have a fear of... I said it then, didn't I? Very, very. Okay. And you are?
My name's Ronnie, and I have a fear of awkward silences.
How long do these silences have to be?
That was borderline, that one.
Right. Let's try and keep the conversation flowing then, shall we?
Hello, I'm Tim. Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. Let me introduce you to everybody. This is Karen. She has a fear of repetition.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
What's the matter with you?
I bark at other people's phobias.
I think I should have just dealt with you on a one-to-one basis. You're here now. My name's Lee. I have a fear of the word which is spelled A-A-G-H exclamation mark, that word. And this is Ronnie. She has a fear of awkward silences.
All right, so we'll try and keep the conversation flowing then, eh?
You said that earlier.
Sorry.
Can we just try and make some progress, please? Right, this is Jim. He has a fear of apologies.
Terribly.
Okay, Jim, would you like to tell the group how this problem started?
Yes, well, it all began when I first tried on my grandmother's stockings. Sorry.
Come on, that was good. Now you got to admit that's funny. Yeah, we've decided we're not going to have that kind of small group around here, but it's making light of it a little bit. But it is no laughing matter when we feel like we're in the grip of fear. And so I want to talk today about how we really can get free from fear. Talk about a freedom weekend. I want to be great to be free from fear. And the Bible tells us, and you say, well, Cal, can you really keep all fear from? Listen, I'm not talking about keeping the emotion of legitimate fear from your life. You're gonna feel that so you can take action. I'm talking about the kind of fear that is based in things you can't do anything about. And so I want to take a particular Psalm 53 or 56, and I'm going to layer it over Psalm 27, which is the psalm we're looking at today. Both written by David. Psalm 27 doesn't give us the context, but he's facing real threats. Psalm 56 might be the very context for Psalm 27, because there he's facing threats, and he gives us kind of this cycle of fear and the response that we can make. So a threat comes, and guys, I just want you to know that threat will always come to your mind. Satan can't do anything against you but that he shoots darts at your mind. And once you take it into your mind and into your heart, then something can begin to happen. So the threat will come. It may be real, it may be imagined. And what that threat does, it creates the feeling of the emotion of fear. So a threat has come, and David says, when I feel afraid, he is admitting to the feeling of fear. When I feel afraid, then there's something I can do. I have a choice. When I feel afraid, I will. And here's the two choices. Right in here, I will either trust, you really have two choices, or I will tremble. And by tremble, I just simply mean I'm gonna let fear run my life. Now watch what happens, because based upon that choice, you're either going to move into the cycle where fear is dominating your life, or you're going to move immediately out of the cycle and you're going to know peace. So David says, the threat comes, when I am afraid, I will trust. I'm going to speak to you about how to trust, things that you can do to activate trust in your life when you're feeling afraid. And when you trust or tremble, the result. If you trust, you're going to come out of the cycle and you're going to know peace. In fact, I love how David says it. When threat comes, when I am afraid, I will, there's the choice, I will trust, and what happens? I will not be afraid. You know what he's saying? I felt the feeling, but I didn't give way to the cycle. So up here, I have no fear. I've come out of the cycle. If I give way to trembling, just let fear dominate my life, the result is panic. And this is just a vicious cycle in here. Now here's the good news. If some of you are panickers, all you have to do is get here at a place of trust, and it's going to move you right out of the cycle. All right? So I want to layer that now onto Psalm 27 and help you know what it means to trust. Well, Cal, I have been trying to trust the Lord. Now, I want to give you 5 keys to trusting Him when you feel afraid. Because here's the deal. The threat may even still be there. But when you're trusting, now you're not walking in fear, even in spite of the threat. And this is what Psalm 27 is all about. 5 keys to trusting God when you feel that fear creeping up in your life. Let's look at them now. And so when I am afraid, I will, what's the word? What's the word? All right, we're going to learn to trust. All right? So here's the T. 5 keys to practicing trust. Key number 1, turn to God immediately. Turn to God immediately. Now, this psalm starts out on a triumphant note. It's a famous verse, Psalm 27:1. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Of whom shall I be afraid? Right? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I fear? But this isn't where David started. This is his testimony. So we're going to come all the way around at the end of the message. We're going to be looking at how to have that testimony because you trusted in God. But this is what he was experiencing because he did. So what do I have to do to trust him? Trust begins when you turn from the threat and you turn to the Lord. It's making him your one thing. Look at what David, this is really where he gets out of the cycle of fear. It begins in verse 4. He says, one thing I ask of the Lord, this is what I seek. Here's the one thing you need to seek if you're going to get out of the cycle of fear. You're turning to the Lord, okay? This is what you can do. That I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. David is talking about getting into the presence of God. And then verse 8, he hears the voice of God as well. My heart says of you, seek his face. Your face, Lord, I will seek. That is what you have to hear. If you're going to turn to the Lord immediately when fear is taking over your life, you are saying, I have to seek the Lord right now. I got to get in his presence. And the good thing is, you don't have to run to a temple in Jerusalem like David had to do. You've got the Holy Spirit living inside of you. You have to immediately say, Holy Spirit, I am turning to you. I'm seeking you right now in the midst of this threat that's coming against me. It's developing a reflex action of turning to the Lord every time you perceive an external threat and staying there until your awareness of God's presence is greater than the thing you fear. It's like the little 4th grader who was on his way to school one day when he ran into the classroom bully and a couple of his cohorts who enjoyed just knocking him down, beating him up, taking the candy bar out of his lunchbox, leaving him with the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and then threatening him, if you tell anybody, you're going to get it worse. And this went on several days in a row, and how many of you know it wouldn't take too long before you don't want to walk to school anymore? His parents noticed and thought it was rather strange. He'd never had a problem walking to school before, and not only that, he had actually enjoyed walking to school. His dad kind of figured out what was going on, and he asked his son, if it'd be okay if I walk with you to school tomorrow. Guy's eyes got real big. He said, would you, Dad? How many of you guys know that that little guy walked to school with a whole lot more confidence the next day? And the bully was up there in the bushes where he would camp out, saw the dad coming, figured he was in trouble. He quickly hid in the bushes. The dad kind of knew what was going on, but he didn't notice his little son when they walked past those bushes. This time the little guy just kind of turned, stuck out his tongue as if to say, take that. But here's my question. What all of a sudden gave that guy confidence to walk to school again? Didn't have time to take a Joe Weider course and build up the muscles so he could handle these guys, right? Wasn't sitting down and trying to psych himself up with positive thinking and all this type of thing in the face of a real threat. It was the presence of somebody bigger than the threat. And this is what David is saying. When you are in the presence of a threat, real or imagined, get in the presence of God and stay there until his presence is bigger than the threat that you're facing, and it's going to take care of your fear. You will realize again that you are walking with the God who is bigger than the threats that are coming against you. Trust begins when you turn to God. Turn to him immediately. Key number 2 is resist, there's your R, resist fearful thoughts aggressively. Resist fearful thoughts aggressively. I'm going to camp here for a little bit because we got to learn this one. Guys, in each of our lives, there is a circle of concern and a circle of influence. And by that I'm talking about fear, where the enemy directs his attack. It is always at your circle of concern. And concern means all of those things over which you have some kind of fear or concern, but over which you have no control. God does not ask you to give way to those fears regarding things over which you have no control. What I am teaching you today is that you need to, let's go back, you need to focus on your influence. TRUST are things over which you have control, which will diminish your fears. Here's what happens. When you just give way to fear, it takes over your life, and you feel less and less like you have control. You're not even focused on the things that you control. And fear is just overwhelming your life. It's pushing in on you. See, what you want to do is just the opposite. You want to focus on those things over which you have control, and as you're doing that, it's going to drive fear out. And to get there, you have to resist fearful thoughts aggressively. So look at here. David speaks of these threats that are coming against him. When evil men advance against me, when my enemies and my foes attack me, though an army besiege me, though war break out against me, question, what can I do to keep those things from happening? The answer, not one cotton-picking thing. Question, what fearful thoughts are bombarding you today in your circle of concern over which you have no control? I want you all to think about that right now. You might even want to write it down. Here it is. I'm fearful that blank. What is it that you fear? Here's the second question. Now get that in your mind. Here's the second question. What can you do about it? And if you have an answer to something, I'm fearful that the little ache I'm feeling might be something. Okay, what can you do? Well, I can go to the doctor. All right, then go to the doctor. Find out about it. But meanwhile, resist those fears that make you feel like, oh, I think I've got cancer. No. Do what you can do about it and stay in this place of influence where you're trusting God and pushing back those fears. So if you've identified what is I'm most fearful about, and you ask the question, what can I do about it? And the answer is nothing. Listen to me now. This could be worth the price of this morning. If your answer is nothing, guys, then it's time to confront that fear in the name of Jesus, to bind it in Jesus' name, and to command any spirit behind that fear that is messing with your life to leave you alone. Just understand, particularly when you feel like your fears are compulsive, like crazy panic just takes over your life regardless of what you do to stop it or fight against it, that's usually indicative that you are battling with the spirit of fear. It's like a foothold or a snag in your brain or your heart that is tormenting you. And the Bible's answer to that is found in James 4:7. And I find a lot of Christians just, it's like when it comes to the enemy, it's all weird. No, it's not weird. Do what the Bible says. And what does it say? Resist the devil and he will flee from you. You've got to resist him, and you resist him aggressively. You resist him verbally. You resist him authoritatively as a child of God. Can I tell you that fear is one of his favorite weapons to rob us of peace and keep us wrapped up in turmoil? Well, I'm trying to trust God, and yet you find yourself in that cycle of panic. You know what you're not doing? You're not resisting. That's one of the things that is a part of trust. I'm turning to God. Now I resist those fearful thoughts aggressively. My daughter Victoria is now 25, but when she was in high school a few years ago, she loved to sing. She has a great voice. She loved being on the worship team, and sometimes you would see her up here. However, what you probably didn't know at times is that whenever she stepped up to lead worship, it's almost like she would seize up with fear. She was just constantly in the throes of panic and not feeling released. It wasn't something that she could talk herself out of. It wasn't something that she had brought on herself. There simply was no good explanation for why she felt this depth of fear and paralysis, and it was literally robbing her of the joy of doing what she had been gifted to do. I mean, can you imagine if these quartet guys with these great voices, they're called of God, they have a gift to sing, they love to do it. Can you imagine one of those guys, every time he walked on stage, would just seize up with fear and panic? To the point where he would just decide, I guess God doesn't want me to do this because, you see, there's the lie of the enemy. God doesn't want me to because I'm in the grip of fear. Wouldn't you conclude that maybe there was something more going on there than just normal butterflies of nervous energy? Victoria was to have a lead one day on the worship team, and she came to my office one Sunday morning while we were just getting ready to pray with some of the guys that pray with me before I come up here. I got a knock on the door, and she's there, and the minute I open it, she just starts to cry. I said, honey, what's the matter? And then I heard her stomach rumble like a Mack truck just drove. I said, what is that? And she said, Dad, she says, every time I have to get up for worship, I just get so afraid. And I said, come here with me. You want to get Daddy mad, you start messing with my daughter. I said, guys, just wait here. I took her out in another office, and I want to tell you something, guys. I want to teach you how to pray this way. You need to do it. I want to ask you, who would have a vested interest in stripping her of what she's gifted to do? Does that sound like God? Strip her of what she loves to do. Strip her of what she's, what she's gifted to do. Doesn't sound like the Spirit of God. You might want to mark this one down. For God has not given us a spirit of fear. If nothing else, that is telling you that there can be a spirit behind fear that attaches to your spirit. And it has not come from God. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but look at this, a spirit of power, of love, and of a sound mind that is simply saying that what God has called you to do and gifted you to do, He is always about empowering you to do, not binding you up with fear so you think, well, God must not want me to do this since I always give way to panic when I do it. I took her aside and I used my authority as a child of God that day to address the enemy's spirit that I knew was messing with her. And I simply said, in Jesus' name, I command any spirit behind this fear to stop harassing Victoria. In Jesus' name, I bind you from messing with her mind and heart anymore. And I command you to leave her alone. In Jesus' name. And I want to tell you, she walked up here without fear, and I don't think she's messed with it again, and she still is helping lead worship at times in her own church. Come on, can somebody give God praise? That is what happens when you resist. Little girl sorry guys that are on the campuses didn't see the little testimony we had here today, but I will just tell you, it came from a young lady who a year and a half ago came to my office. And she was essentially failing school at that time, fearful that she wasn't going to graduate. She wants to go into ministry and serve the Lord. Why? Because she was locked up on the floor most days, had missed 90 out of the last 100 days of school or so. Why? Because of panic attacks in her life. And you notice how she said, never dawned on me maybe that God would do something about it. But finally the pain got to a place where her mom said, come on, and her mom's on staff and said, could I bring my daughter to see you? And again, it's not because I have some magic powers. I just know how to use the Lord's name to get at the root of some of this stuff that's going on. You can do the same thing. But I want to tell you what, guys. It was warfare going on in her life. We got to the root of it. I bound that strong man of anxiety and fear and cast his butt out and off of her life. And she can tell you, she hasn't had another panic attack since. And this past May, I went to her graduation party. She hasn't missed another day of school since. And she graduated like straight A's this year, is going to college to become a youth minister. Is that awesome? That's what God does. Come on, praise Him. I'm telling you. We've sat in church too long, and this stuff is theory. I'm telling you, put it to work, and you'll see that God has the power to bring down strongholds of fear in your life. But you've got to resist. Turn to the Lord immediately and resist fearful thoughts aggressively. And guys, I just want you to know that as a child of God, I like to say you carry the credit card. Your daddy's given you his credit card. And when you, in his name, speak against things that have no right to rule and reign in your life, you will see their power broken. Turn to the Lord immediately. Resist fearful thoughts aggressively. Key number 3, this kind of goes right along with 2 and 3 kind of belong together. Because at the same time you're resisting, you're doing this. You unleash your faith talk confidently. Unleash your faith talk confidently. So David lists these fears that are coming against him, but look at how he unleashes his faith talk. Here's verse 3. Though an army besiege me, that's the threat, my heart's not going to fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident. Why am I going to be confident? He's been in the presence of the Lord and fed his faith. And how many know that when you feed your faith, your fears will starve to death? Feed your faith, and your fears will starve to death. Get God's word on your heart and on your tongue. And that's what David does. He says, I may have not have any control over these external concerns, but I do have control over my internal world. I do have control over these keys to trusting God. I do have control over my thoughts and my self-talk. Guys, I've told you before, the most important conversations you have every day are the thousands that go on up here between your ears. You might want to start there and say, what is it that I'm allowing to run through my mind? We call it self-talk, but when that self-talk is infused with faith, it becomes faith talk, and it's powerful. So when fear is trying to beat you down with all of its what-if messages, take control of those conversations. What if this business decision turns out wrong? What if I can't find a job? What if my health issues get worse? What if the stock market crashes? What if the Bears have another losing season? You know. Now listen, there's something you can do about that. Just start rooting for somebody who's going to win. All right? If you need help with that, I'll help you. But look at this. He comes from that place of being in the presence of God, and he's got his faith talk on. For in the day of trouble, he will hide me in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his tabernacle and set me high up on a rock. And this morning while I was out having my prayer walk, I was just at a particular point as I'm rehearsing the word, I was using Psalm 27. Thank you, Lord, that you set me high. You exalt my head. See, that's our faith talk. So when we're resisting those fearful thoughts aggressively, we're putting on our faith talk confidently. David's like, man, if God's with me, what the heck am I worried about? See, get your faith talk on. Unleash your faith talk confidently. That will lead to then our fourth key, and that is sing your praise joyfully. See, once you get out of that grip of fear, and man, you're walking in faith talk, guys, just you start singing praise. And this is what David does. Filled with faith. Look at this. Verse 6. He says, I will sacrifice with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. Does this sound like a guy who's in the grip of fear? Man, he's singing now. When it feels like fear is winning, get in God's presence and start praising God for who he is and praising him for his promises. And use whatever songs work for you guys. Legacy 5 does it for me. Southern Gospel does it for me. Man, when I'm down, I'm fearful, I'm anxious, I'm stressed. I've just learned I need some music in my soul. And you better be glad you're not in my car when I start cranking up the Southern Gospel music. I've told you before, one of these days, a cop's going to stop me when I'm going 90 miles an hour. I'm sorry. The music just took over, You got music that does that for you? Some of you need to be here tonight and just let the music get into your soul and chase away some of the garbage that's going on in your life. It will if you'll put yourself in that place and start singing and making music in your heart. I love it. Last year, a 12-year-old in this church sent me a note that she wanted me to send to Legacy 5. 12 years old. She said, you know, whenever I'm feeling down or whenever I'm afraid and this type of thing, she said, I'll go to my room, and she said, I'll put on my headphones and I'll listen to Legacy 5. And she said, man, every time it works, it just kind of brings my heart up again. Is that awesome for a 12-year-old? I'm glad that 12-year-old's learned how to sing. But whatever music works for you, when you're facing a mountain of fear, start singing praising God in front of that mountain. And it won't be long until instead of telling God about how big the mountain is, you'll be telling the mountain how big your God is. You magnify Him, and your mountain will melt. Some of you remember the story of how Bobby's dad walked in the front room one afternoon to discover Bobby looking out on the road with his out into the park with his telescope, but he had the telescope turned around the wrong way. And his dad corrected him and said, Bobby, you know, when you look through the telescope that way, it makes things look smaller. Telescope is make things look larger. He said, yeah, but Dad, that guy, that bully I'm kind of afraid of is down there in the park right now. He said, I don't want him to look larger, so I turn it around so I can really make him look smaller and I won't be as afraid. I thought, there's a smart kid. And here's what I want you to understand, guys. When you're trying to fight off fear, it matters a whole lot which end of the telescope you turn on the problem and which end you turn on God. What we want to do is magnify God and minimize the problem. That's why Psalm 34 and verse 3, what does it mean to magnify Him? Magnify the Lord with me. This is David, Psalm 34. It might be the very context of Psalm 27 because it's the same fearful things coming against him. And what does he say? Magnify the Lord with me. Let us exalt His name together. And then look at this. Well, how are we going to do that? How are we going to magnify God? Psalm 69, again, it's another fear psalm. It's David, all these same threats coming against him. What does he say? I will praise God's name in song. And what's the word? I will magnify Him with thanksgiving. What is he saying? When I start singing and praising God, when I get in His presence, I'm turning the big end of the telescope on Him and magnifying Him. And how many of you know that what you magnify in your heart and mind is what will occupy your heart and mind? You might want to write that down. What you magnify is what will occupy. You'll magnify your fear, it'll occupy your heart. You're going to magnify the greatness of God, it'll melt those fears. It's part of what it means to trust. Don't just say, well, I'm trusting. No. Are you turning to God? Are you resisting? See? Are you utilizing your faith talk? Are you singing and praising? Then I'll know you're trusting. And here's the good part. Once you get here, you'll be coming to key number 5, you testify to the triumph boldly. You testify to the triumph boldly. Let others know what God has done for you. Where we started is where we end up. David is testifying in verse 1. He's taking us through the process in the rest of the psalm to bring us back to verse 1 because that's where he ends. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Here's the trust, okay? So get those down. That's what it means. That's what it means to trust Him. And when I am afraid, I will trust. I will trust and not be afraid. See, brings me out of the cycle. But here's the testimony. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? He's testifying to the triumph because when you truly trust God, He will give you a testimony. This week I completed 12 hours of training with some leaders from another church who wanted to learn more about how to set people free from these kind of spiritual strongholds. And on Tuesday night, a woman in the class, I have a little template when it comes time to pray for people and minister freedom to them and break off these strongholds. She said, you know, I feel like as I've been sitting here, I think I have a stronghold. I said, are you willing for the rest of the class to kind of watch what we do here? Sure I am. So Karen was the guinea pig. I want to tell you, she talked about how from the moment she was little, even now to her adult years, she could be in a car and panic will overtake her. Now, when somebody else is driving, there's always a fear that we're going to get lost. Now, we discovered the root of that. She was abandoned as a little child. And that was the root that was bringing this panic into her life. And when I spoke to that stronghold, that spirit of abandonment in her life and commanded him to leave, broken. She was set free. And it's not like all kind of weird stuff goes on, so don't freak out. Don't forget about Hollywood, okay? But you can always tell, you can see it happen, and they know it's happened. She comes back to class on Wednesday night. She has this big smile on her face. She's like, I've got testimony. That's what we tell the class. She said, you know, I was set free last night. And she said, I knew something had broken off in my life. But she said, today I was on my way to the Quad Cities with one of my girlfriends. And she got lost. And then we got caught in a huge downpour. I mean, a nasty rainstorm. And she said, my friend was freaking out. Had to pull over to the side of the road. And she said, all of a sudden, it dawned on me, I'm at total peace for the first time in my life. She said, my friend looked over at me and said, how can you be so calm? And she said, a big smile came to my face. And I said, I can help you with that. That's your testimony. When you know that the Lord is your light and your salvation, and He's delivered you from fear, you just want other people to know that they can be delivered from fear as well. Amen? Let's make that our declaration today. And so here's what we're going to do. And then the guys are going to sing us out of here. I want you to stand to your feet right now. Everybody, all the campuses, we're going to make this our declaration. Then sit down real quick and let these guys bless you at all of our campuses. Then go buy your tickets and fill this place up tonight, all right? Here we go. I want you to say it after me. The Lord is my light and my salvation. I will not fear. The Lord is the stronghold of my life. I will not be afraid. I believe it. I receive it in Jesus' name. Now give Him praise, guys. And then sit down for a minute and let these guys bless you as you go.
My sins were hammered, His body bore the brunt of all my shame. The wooden beams have long since vanished, but there's redemption there just the same. I trust the cross, I trust the cross. In times like these, the world can seem like there's no refuge for the lost. But I believe in the precious blood that Calvary caused. Oh, hallelujah, I trust the cross. The broken healing can be found, and lonely hearts can find a refuge, and captive souls can be unbound. I trust the cross, I trust the cross. In times like these, the world can seem like there's no refuge for the lost. But I believe in the precious blood that Calvary cost. Oh, hallelujah, I trust the cross. There is no greater truth, no more certain absolute than the cross that Jesus bore for me and you. I trust the cross. I trust the cross. In times like these, the world can seem like there's no refuge for the lost. But I believe in the precious blood that Calvary cost. Oh, hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah. I trust the cross. I trust the
Are you trusting the cross? Come on, I can't hear you. Give it up. Yeah. I'll tell you what. They had Scott used to sing with a guy that said, that song don't light your fire, your wood's wet. You get your tickets, you come on back, all right? We're going to have a great time tonight as we just get ready for the 4th of July. Thank you for being here. Listen, I'm going to be praying for you the next number of weeks. You pray for me. Can't wait to get back here and look at what God's going to do as we move forward. But if you need prayer for anything, you come on down, and particularly those of you who may be wrestling with some kind of fear. Our prayer team would love to just pray with you, and let's see what God will do, okay? God bless you. Have a great day. Have a great 4th of July. Sorry, guys, almost forgot about you today. I'm so glad you guys were here watching with us again. Thank you for joining us. Always glad to have you here. And you know what? I'm understanding that you guys are in. You can actually like win a prize. So you let us know where you're watching from. Follow the directions on the screen there. Let us know you get your name entered to maybe win a prize. Always great to have you with us. You guys have a great 4th of July. Join us next week. My son will be talking about how to deal with how you feel when you feel depressed. God bless you guys. Have a great week.